You're watching Reality Check. As the second wave shows signs of abating, it may be time to focus on the other worrying curve of India's faltering growth. Growth figures released today for the fourth quarter of the last financial year show a slight uptick, but overall the projection for the year, a minus 7.3% growth, is expectedly worrying. It's the worst in over 4 decades. Through this time, the government and its supporters have pointed out that growth rates have crashed all over the world because of the pandemic. But growth in India was falling even before the virus. The COVID-induced lockdowns have only worsened an already declining curve. Let's look at that number first coming up on the screen of how growth in India has been slowing for 11 consecutive quarters, starting in 2017-18, the first quarter of that year, and then of course that big crash in the first quarter of 2020-21 of minus 24%. It's picked up since then, but the important point to note is that the growth curve was already falling even before the virus. And let's just look at the figure now. We've looked at the quarterly figure. Let's just look at the figures now for the last 5 years of growth overall. And once again, you can see the curve was falling even before the virus, and the virus has pushed it now to a 40-year low in this last financial year. Now, the second wave has worsened poverty and job losses, new surveys are finding. 97% of the Indians are poorer during the pandemic. Unemployment figures have hit double digits in May 2021. 1 crore jobs may have been lost between January and April of this year. 1 crore more jobs could be lost just in the month of May 2021. This is from Azim Premji University and the Center for Monitoring the Indian Economy, CMIE. 23 crore more people may have fallen into poverty during the time of the pandemic, these agencies and institutions have found. In rural India, poverty is up 15 percentage points. In urban India, it's even worse. Poverty is up 20 percentage points in the period of the number of lockdowns. Let's move on. The poorest 20% households lost their entire incomes in the April-May period of 2020, the Azim Premji University has found. Monthly per capita incomes have fallen by almost 1,000 rupees from the January versus October period of 2020. Monthly earnings of workers have dropped by 17%, again finds the Azim Premji University. And COVID lockdowns are actually impacting hunger. Hunger is rising. 90% of households ate less during the lockdowns. 20% households are still eating less 6 months after the lockdown in the period of April to May 2020 compared to November 2020, finds Azim Premji University. Matters have reached a stage where even FICCI, a top industry body normally known for its restraint and highly conservative statements, is raising red flags. According to their business confidence survey, they say that the business confidence index has fallen from 74 to 51 points. There's a sharp drop in optimism levels of corporate India, says the survey, because of worsening conditions, muted expectations and the COVID surge. 70% of those who participated in the survey reported weak demand. All right, joining us tonight on Reality Check, we have with us Mahesh Vyas, Managing Director and CEO of CMIE, Dr. Pranab Sen, former Chairman, National Statistical Commission, Subhash Chandra Garg, former Finance Secretary, and Anil Bharadwaj, who's the Secretary General of the Federation for Small and Medium Enterprises. Thank you all so much for being here on the show with us. If I may just start by asking you, Mahesh Vyas, the numbers in your surveys are quite worrying. 97% Indians poorer during the pandemic. That's virtually all Indians. And unemployment, you found, which had started, I think, to come down as the pandemic or the first wave had eased, has skyrocketed again.
So that's right. We asked a very direct question in our survey. We asked people what do they think their incomes are today compared to a year ago? And in April, only 3% said that their incomes were higher than a year ago. So it's a very direct thing. If only 3% people tell us that their incomes are higher than a year ago, then the remaining 97% have seen a fall in their income, at least in real terms, because 55% of the respondents said that they have seen their incomes worsen compared to a year ago, and the remaining about 42% said it's neither better nor worse. So in real terms, if you account for inflation, then obviously all these 97% people, and maybe even a part of the 3%, have seen a deterioration in their income. That's what we mean by saying that 97% of the people or the households are poorer compared to what their incomes were a year ago.
Right. So this is obviously those across the entire economic spectrum, from white collar workers and so on, as well as those who are in the bottom tiers of the economy, but obviously, you know, they would be hit the hardest, I'm assuming.
Well, it's quite possible, and the numbers show that the people at the rock bottom are so down the income count that they don't have much scope for a fall, really speaking. So it's not true that they are the ones who are the most hit, the ones at the real bottom of the pyramid. It's the people in the middle who seem to have been hit the most. They have seen a very sharp fall in their incomes. That's what we see in the numbers that we have till December 2020 when we have the income numbers. These numbers are more about people saying that their incomes have fallen. So I think the hit is a lot more in the lower middle incomes than middle income households.
Right. And we're seeing that with all these numbers about how hunger is up, spending is down, incomes and livelihoods have been badly hit. Dr. Sen, what is worrying is that this time around, the lockdown has not been as severe, at least there wasn't a severe national lockdowns, there were a lot of localized lockdowns, so there still has been some kind of quasi-economic activity. But I guess the cumulative impact of last year, I mean obviously the slowing growth before that, but the cumulative impact of last year's lockdown and now the surge of the second wave seems to have been quite devastating.
That's correct. In fact, that's only a part of it, Srinivasan. You know, last year, the lockdown was a certainty. We knew exactly where we were. We knew when it began, we knew when it would end, and that was it. This time, the lockdown, as you rightly said, is not as severe, but the uncertainty is orders of magnitude worse. Now, uncertainty has perhaps an even more debilitating effect than a certain shock. Right? It plays out for longer, it affects the way we think, it affects our decision making. So the damage from this uncertainty can really be quite devastating.
Right.
And it may last much longer.
And it may last.
Very quickly last year.
Right. Okay. Before I come to Mr. Garg, I just wanted to ask you, Anil Bharadwaj, that, you know, just tell us about how this is actually playing out for small businesses. And let's just start with your own business, because you yourself have a small business. What are the challenges you're facing this time around compared to the first wave and the first lockdown?
I think there has been quite a difference between the first lockdown, the first wave, and the second wave. In the first wave, it was fear, but in the second wave, because of widespread loss of human life, it was panic. And you know, the visuals of people fighting for or to get oxygen, not being able to get to the hospitals, nears and dears of their own family members, of the businessmen, entrepreneurs themselves. I mean, this has created a sort of a panic this time, and it was very real. To be honest, I mean, in our own executive, there was a time when almost 60% of the executive committee members were infected with COVID. Fortunately, they did not have much of the problem.
This is 60%
I mean, they came out of it.
Of your federation.
Yes, executive committee members.
Right.
So, I mean, you can imagine the widespread impact this time it had. Earlier it was, I mean, we heard that, somebody in particular society has fallen, you can say, to COVID. But this time it was entrepreneurs themselves, their own family members, their own whole energy this time was, you can say, used or was consumed by fighting for themselves.
This is, I mean, obviously worrying. But just tell me, what has that meant in actual terms? Like, were your workers choosing not to come to work? Were they, has there been some migration as well? What's been happening?
We did a quick survey telephonically, and the results are like, almost 80 to 90% of the industries, wherever they were allowed to open, this time they were open. But half of them were working at 40% of their capacity with 30-40% of the workforce. I mean, some people have left for their homes. They could not come because of the lockdowns. But industries were open this time, almost everywhere, except in areas, where there was strictly locked down, like in Delhi, for example, when industries were closed down.
Right.
But barring a few sectors like food processing or pharmaceutical and certain amount of chemicals, almost everybody was working much below their capacity. And they were still working because at least they could meet the commitments of the payrolls,
Okay.
But one more thing, that almost 1/3 of industries, we found that they have been struggling extremely in meeting the obligations, whether of the banks and financial institutions, or even meeting the statutory requirements that are there.
Okay. I wanted to come to that in just a second about how financially everyone's coping. But let me just go to Mr. Garg. Garg Saab, we've often had these conversations in the past 6 months to a year about what exactly is needed to start turning things around. We saw in the first wave there were a couple of these Atmanirbhar packages, which was basically providing some kind of financial stimulus in the form of making lending easier, or rather borrowing easier. The government has largely stayed away from doing direct cash transfers and providing that kind of support, which many people have been talking about. Now, when you look at these numbers that continue to bottom out, what do you think is the required strategy at this time?
See, Srinivasan, to my mind, to design the right kind of strategy, one should know where the biggest pain is, where the biggest losses are, where the biggest suffering. And if you look at the data which has come up today, the largest segment where the pain is in this category called trade, communications, transportation, hotels, restaurants. That is the category which suffered 18% GVA loss last year.
Right.
That is the highest, which literally meant that 1/5 of the income in that segment, and that is a segment which employs something like 70% of India's MSMEs and 60 to 70% of workers outside agriculture.
Okay.
So that is the segment where the biggest pain is, and the next one is the construction. So you have to design a package for them, and that is
when
that.
You talk about package, what kind of, because the government will turn around and throw 10 packages at us saying we have done all these packages, but it's all stopped short of providing direct financial support. It's mostly through the forms of various kinds of loans and so on. Is it now time to look at more direct forms of support?
These packages were not very well designed. So even that loan package for the MSMEs targeted only the larger and the bigger MSMEs. And that was also designed in a way that even after 1 year having gone, that has not been disbursed even 60%. And what was the size of that loan? That was only 3% of the loans outstanding.
Right.
Even that has not been disbursed. So you have to get the assistance to the largest number of SMEs, which is about 6 to 7 crores largely working in this segment. And they are not on the radar of the government at all.
Okay.
No one knows them. So the package has
Okay, those are small businesses, and of course they definitely need support. But Mahesh Vyas, there is of course a huge swath of population which is outside the formal economy, and there's been much talk about essentially finding ways of transferring cash, some way of directly putting money in people's hands. Is that the need of the hour?
I think what's important is to take a macroeconomic view on this, and I think that's what is missing in the game. Targeted support has only limited effect. The problem is there is demand which is falling, incomes have shrunk, households are unable to get the confidence to go out and spend even if they have the money. What's important is to say from a macroeconomic perspective, the government needs to spend. That's the first most important thing. If the government says, yes, we are willing to spend, then comes a question of how. But I think what's happening is we are too often in this COVID 1 and 2 getting lost into trying to say we need to target expenses. I think give up on targeting expenses. It's more important to first say that we need to spend and spend really fast. Whether it is capital expense or on the current account, it's important to just spend. And spend in a fashion in which it takes money into the hands of households as fast as possible. Okay. That's what is important.
Dr. Sen, what's the way out of this?
This will have to be sequenced.
Yes.
So long as uncertainty is there,
yes,
there is no point in trying to do large interventions. The focus should be on mitigating the humanitarian problem that we're facing, and we are facing a huge humanitarian problem.
Okay.
Address that. It doesn't take a lot of money. But I think I agree with Mahesh. Targeting is a bad idea. Targeting creates, again, additional uncertainties as to who's going to get it, who's not going to get it. Make it universal. As far as rebuilding the economy is concerned, that is something that will have to be done lockstep with industry. If industry is not prepared to come in and invest, and as Mr. Bharadwaj very rightly said, that the industry is facing so much problems in terms of uncertainty, that until and unless industry says, we are ready, give us the demand that we need to put our money out there.
Yes.
Having a large fiscal package does not make sense. So this will have to be spread out. It will have to be calibrated with the progress of the pandemic.
Right.
And have to be calibrated with the progress that is made in reducing the fear and uncertainty that consumers and producers are facing.
I mean, when you talk of industry, the statement by FICCI from the excerpt of which I read out is by the standards of FICCI, that's quite strong. When they talk about how business confidence has crashed and demand, 70% participants are reporting weak demand. So in a sense, those red flags are already being raised. But let me just come to you, Anil Bharadwaj, that you were saying, and I want you to elaborate on this, that even now, all of you small businesses are still struggling with this whole question of loans, right? And we used to talk about this last year as well, that the argument many of you are making is, yes, it may be easier to now take loans, but you still have to service those loans. And how do you do that if your business is not running, I mean, it's either shut down or it's not running at speed?
That is true, actually, and that is why very recently we have written to the Governor RBI that we need relaxation in SMA norms, the norms which ultimately define how a particular account is going to become an NPA. So flexibility is needed. Special mention account it is called in the terminology of RBI. But Srinivasan, I mean, in order to revive the economy and put things back on the roll, I think in my limited understanding, there are three ways. One is that you shore up spending. Where I feel that government has limited money in the hand at this moment. They have already spent, and we are sitting in basically first 2 months only. The budget was announced, it was to kick in from 1st April onwards. So there is not much that is there that government would start spending. The second is the tax cuts. On tax cuts, neither the state governments in the GST Council nor the central government, they are already ready to take any step.
Right.
And third, very important is reforms, because reforms have the same impact as the tax cuts.
Right.
I think that's an area where we can do quite a lot. There are many areas where a lot of reforms are needed, and they could create the same amount of, traction that perhaps all of us are looking for.
Well, we tend to forget that we had a budget which was supposed to be this big reform budget, and it was supposed to start getting the gears and cogs of the economy moving. I'm not sure if any of that's having any impact. But I want to come back to the question of how exactly one provides a safety net. And Mr. Garg, I was talking to Uday Kotak last month, I beg your pardon, and he actually said it's time to, firstly he said you need to do direct cash transfers to the bottom half of the economy, which is somewhat unusual coming from Uday Kotak, but he also said if it requires to print cash, print cash. If not now, when? This is what he said.
No, that's fine. So the poor people, you brought out those statistics very well in the beginning, and even the data released today says that the income loss on an average to Indians is 10% less expenditure. This is devastating spread of poverty, and that can only be resolved by sort of providing cash support to them. Last year, the government did provide some support in the form of that 500 rupees per month. That was too small, but there is no other way than to reach to the poor, to provide them support in the face of having lost all their employments and jobs and income.
Yeah.
So I think that is necessary. And this talk or this claim of government having run up very large debt and not having fiscal capacity, etc., to my mind is not really very well founded.
Right.
In these times, there is nothing like fiscal deficit constraints and all, and the government must spend for providing succor, much needed succor. Otherwise, the hunger, the poverty, and this time this has been much worse because the COVID has affected the poor very badly, and they have, by falling into this health crisis, they have actually literally become unlivable for them. So I think
that's true. I think Mahesh Vyas, very quickly in conclusion, I think that figure, that's a devastating figure that 23 crore Indians may have slipped into poverty during the pandemic. Even if one quibbles over the numbers, the fact that poverty, which it looked like we were slowly beating, it's reversed. That's just terrible.
And those numbers were generated by Amit Basole and his team from Azim Premji University quite some time back.
Yes.
I think the situation by May 2021 has only worsened. So we are required to wait to see more numbers come out. And I think the situation this time in April and May is particularly looking very bad to me. Looking at the data from the Consumer Pyramids Household Survey, the employment, unemployment data, it's looking particularly bad to me.
Okay, very worrying indeed. But let's see what response, if any, we get from the government. But for the moment, that's all the time we have on Reality Check. Thank you all so much for joining me and for watching. Goodbye.